Hi, it's Pat Campbell of PatLeeCampbell.com, and this is my video response to Anthony's invitation to share 7 things that you might not know about me. And thank you, Anthony. The first thing I'd like to tell you about is about my dad. My father was born in 1915 in Calcutta, British India, and I do have his baptismal certificate from St. Paul's Cathedral that I just brought home this summer to frame, and that was, that's quite a heritage. He actually was then sent to Glasgow, Scotland, to be raised by a maiden aunt, and spent a lot of his years in boarding schools before he immigrated to Canada. And the interesting thing about that story, which I actually just learned this summer, and this is point number 2, is my grandfather was an entrepreneur back in Calcutta. He actually started a business with another man called Muirhead, and in 1945 he sold his business to some East Indian family. And they then created a business called Lemur Import and Exports, which I understand is still very much in operation in India today, kind of the equivalent of FedEx here in North America. So I guess I have some seeds of entrepreneurship within me, some genes, if you will, from my grandfather. And so anyway, Dad came to Canada and met my mom. As you can see, the pictures behind us here. This is point number 2. My mother is a registered nurse, graduated back in 1943. In the 70s, when it was my turn to decide what I was going to do, it was kind of like you're either a nurse, a secretary, or a teacher. I didn't really have a wide open world for me, and it was kind of a no-brainer. I did choose nursing and have done that now for 30 years. I stayed home 10 years with my boys, and those were absolutely memorable times. I am now a palliative nurse working full-time in palliative care, and will be doing that until my retirement in another year or so. Point number 3. One of the things that has sort of affected me all of my life is that I had a really bad case of German measles in grade 1. It's a long story around that. But I will say that I went into quite a delirium and high fever with that, and subsequently had hearing loss. School nurse would tell me every year I needed a hearing aid. That didn't happen until grade 12, when social services stepped in and helped. Consequently, I do have apparently a little bit of an accent, which is, if you know hearing impaired people, you'll recognize that. However, with my maiden name being Lee, my dark complexion and long black hair, folks always ask me where did I come from? And I knew where the question was coming from or going to. And it was always fun, especially as a young nurse. So that's what I have done with my life in terms of my career, and very grateful to social services for providing for me an education and the hearing aid supports that I needed at that time. I am the middle of 5 children. I have an older brother and sister, 5 years between my sister and I, and then I have a younger sister and brother. And it seems that this is kind of like a second family, and I'm the firstborn of that group. And so come along with that, the sort of the character traits of being the oldest and taking responsibility and all that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of carries over in how I do my business, and in a lot of ways can be quite comfortable, if you will, taking responsibility and moving through with that. Point number 4 is, I am a grandmother. We are anticipating our 4th grandchild here just in a couple of weeks, February 24th. So that's really very fun. And our 5th grandchild is due in July. Being a grandparent is an awesome gift for young parents in the middle of raising children and paying bills and finishing school and all the rest of it. We've all been there. sometimes it's just delightful to have grandparents to come along to lift the load and help with childcare and just delight in your children. And we do that a lot with our kids. Point number 5, I am a Jane Austen fan. I love her books. I love the movies that are done around the stories in her book. I am not a pure Janeite in that I haven't gone to the national conferences or visited her home, but I do love that genre of writing. P.D. James, I'm sorry that she has passed on this year. But anyway, that's kind of, if I want to relax and get lost in a book, that's where I'll turn to sometimes. And point number 6, I have it 6, but I think I already told you about an extra one, that's my hearing loss, is one of the first things I want to do when my time is my own is go back to baking bread. I used to bake bread, 10 loaves every week by hand in my big kneading pan with my 92-year-old aunt's bread recipe, and you use hot potato water to, settle the yeast. So that is certainly something I'm looking forward to doing someday when, time is of no consequence for me. And so I think that adds up to number 7, and I'm sorry I might have lost count. So thank you for hanging in there with me today, and I certainly look forward to getting to know more of you through your videos as well. Take care. Bye-bye for now.